You don't make an eruv with uncooked beets. Raw beets, which is chai, kills living people, so it's not healthy, and therefore you can't make an eruv with it. We see people eating beets; they don't die. Also, we're talking about if it's only partially cooked. Partially cooked beets are dangerous. If it's raw, or if it's cooked, then it's okay. In fact, Amar of Chizda, Tafshil shall trade in a dish made of cooked beets. Yafel Lelev, the Tov Leinai. It's good for the heart and good for the eyes. The Kosher Kevat Neimai, and for the intestines. Amar Abayah, Behudi Yosef Abeit Fei, the oven tuch. It's got to sit on the oven and boil until it makes the noise tuch, like it's bubbling. Amar Rava. Hareini ke Ben Azai b'shukei Tveria. I feel like Ben Azai in the markets of Tveria, where I could answer any question put to me. So a certain Talmud Chacham asked Rava, Tapuchim bekamo. How many apples do you need to make an eruv? Amar lei, Arvin b'tapuchim. Rava said, well, you can't even make an eruv with tapuchim. No. Rava knew that you could. He was just testing them. So the Gemara says, "V'lo, but none." We have a Mishnah. It starts with lipsos like via b'chatzi pras. If you touch tummy dick of food, does not make you tummy. But you have to eat a certain amount. If you eat a chatzi pras of tummy dick of food, you become tummy. And you don't have to eat the chatzi pras of one tummy dick of food. You could eat a combination of multiple foods. And the amount of food you need to set down your eruv for eruv tchumim is enough food for 2 sudos. Another rule, you need a certain amount of food in order for something to be metame, it has to be at least kabetza. And when it says kol ha'oichlin, must include the apples. Hi, mighty yufta. What's the kash? And apples are edible. Where we learned a couple of days ago the principle of ein lemeidim min haklalos. Whenever it says kol ha'oichlin, kol ha'eruv, kol ha'this, whatever the kol is, you can't learn from klolos. Afilu b'makom shnever b'chutz. Ela mishum diktani uv'mazur steisus le'eruv v'chabetz l'tamei tumas ha'oichlin. We said, in order, how much food you need to lay down an eruv? It's got to be enough for 2 sudos. And the amount of food to become has to be kabetza. And these apples are also can be used for Muslim state students and can be metame tumas oichlin. So kama. So how many apples do you need? Rav Nachman tapuchim b'kav. You need a kav tapuchim. Meisvei Shimon Elazar Omer. Uchla tavlin. Uchla tav meaning an eighth of a liter, or litra lug, which is a log. Rashi says an eighth of a log, which is a litra. So uchla is that's the amount of spices. The litra yerek, a full log, not an eighth, but a full log of vegetable. The asora egozim, 10 walnuts. Chamisha farskim, 5 peaches. Shnei rimonim, 2 pomegranates, the etrog echad, 1 etrog. These are the shiurin of these foods that you need that make it chashiv, that you lay down an eruv. V'amar gursik bar dori mishmei Rav Menashe bar shkuvli mishmei Rav chen le'eruv. The same shiur. Those are shiurim to carry on Shabbos, because and I'm sorry, this is the amount of food that you have to give to Meiser. When you give Meiser Ani, this is the amount of food you have to give to an Ani for Meiser Ani. It's considered choshev. And on that comment, Rob said, V'chein le'eruv. This is the measurement of these foods to make an eruv. And apples, hananami levi kiafarsakin. It should be the same as peaches. It's a fruit, it's very similar. So why do you say it's a kav? It should be 5 apples. Or says, no, hani chashivi v'ani lo chashivi. Peaches are more chashiv.
No, but he talks about the size. The size has to be the same. Okay, it's the size of the fruit. You can't bring a tiny little peach or tiny.
No, so you have to
apple.
bring 5. You have to bring 5 of them.
You're right, but they have to be a certain size. Also, you can't bring little tiny ones.
Should be
the
enough.
Apples should also be like peaches. They are similar in size.
Right, but the Gemara's kasha is, why do you say it has to be a kav of apples? Should be 5 apples, just like we said, 5 peaches.
Right.
So the peaches are big, like Walter said. Since they're chashuv and big, 5 peaches are going to be good. But 5 apples are not chashuv, and you need a kav of apples. Rav Yosef, Shorle Moile Rav Menashe bar Shenule. Pardon me. It's like he's saying, "Pardon me." Ana Amrita Niele Amasnisan Buamar Baraisa. You quoted a Baraisa. I can quote you a Mishnah. It's not, because Tanya is a Baraisa, because they mentioned before a Baraisa, and I'm going to mention you a Mishnah. Ein Porchin Lo Ani Bagoyrin. You cannot give to an Ani when you're distributing Meiser Ani less than Mechatzi Chav Kitin, a half a kav of wheat, the kav Sa'oirin, and a kav of barley. Rameir Omer Chatzi kav Sa'oirin, half a kav of barley, the kav V'chetzi Kusmin, 1.5 kav of Kusmin is a like rye, another kind of a grain, and kav groigrois, and a kav of dates or figs, or manat vela or pressed dates of a mana. Rabbi Kiva oimer pras. It's not a mana; it's half a mana. A pras is chatzi mana, and chatzi log yayin, and a half a log yayin. That's the amount you have to give to an ani. Rabbi Kiva oimer revius. And it's a half of that. It's not a log; it's a revius log. It's not a half a log; it's a revius log, or revius shemet, and or a quarter log of shemet. Rabbi Kiva oimer shminis, an 1/8 of a log. Ushar kol haperes. What about other fruits? Amar aber shol kidei sheyim kerem yikach ben mazon stasis. It's the size of the fruits that you can sell, and with the money buy enough food for two sudos. Not just the shear that you give to an ani at the goyren for meiser ani, but it's also, these are the shiurim for these kind of items to lay down an eruv. So this is a mishnah. So why is this stronger than the brisa? Because in the previous brisa you mentioned spices. And we don't eat spices, we just eat them with our other food. But you also mentioned food, like chitin usori. Those certainly are things that you can eat. At least you can eat, well, you can't eat from them right away. You have to process them. And they're not edible raw. So that elamishum diktani chatzi log yayin. It's because the Mishnah that you quoted is stronger because it mentioned half a log of yayin. The Omer Rav Ma'arvin b'shtei reviyah shel yayin. And Rav has already stated you can make an eruv with two reviyahs of yayin, which is half a log. If you need so much wine, and it must be that he was commenting on that Mishnah, not on the Brisa. It seems to be a good raya. We said that the shear of food is enough food to eat 2 meals. Sover Yosef Lameimar, Ad Ikul Suuda Mehayu Suuda Mahai. It has to. If it has to be enough for 1 suda, each food that you bring has to be enough for 1 suda. You should bring 2 different types of food. 1 food for 1 suda, the other food for the other suda. No, you can bring multiple foods, and even if 1 food is only good for half or a third or a quarter of a meal, but there's hitztarfus, you can add it all up. Gufa. Omer Rav. Ma'arvin b'shtei reviyah shel yayin. You can make an eruv with 2 reviyas halog of wine. But that's a lot. You need all of that. So there is a concept here. You need enough wine in order to drink wine that satisfies you for 2 meals, or you just need enough wine to they used to dip their bread into wine. So you need enough wine to dip your bread for 2 sudos in that amount of wine, which is different than enough wine to fill you up for 2 sudos. Yain kedei lechol bo, chometz, vinegar kedei latablu bo. Also for you to dip your bread. Zeisim uvitzolim, olives and onions, kedei lechol bo and shtei sudos, enough that goes along with the other foods for 2 sudos. Where it says that's a different item. We're talking about hasam b'chamra mavashla, cooked wine, which you don't drink, which you dip your bread, and therefore it's enough with a smaller shear like we're mentioning. But drinkable wine in a charami would require a bigger shear. Amar Mar. You mentioned chometz kedei l'tabel boy. Vinegar is the shear has to be to dip. That if you're eating 2 sudas of vegetables, the amount of vinegar you need is the amount of vinegar that you would dip 2 sudos worth of vegetables into. The amount of vegetables to lay down for an eruv is enough to be eaten for 2 meals. Amar. Zeisimu v'tzolim, olives and onions, is kedei lechol ben maznos stei sudas. We said to eat from it 2 meals. Freit the Gemara, uv'tzolim mima arvim. Can you even make an eruv from onions? Vatanya Amar Shem ben Elazar, pamachas Shabbos Rav Meir ba'ardiska. Rav Meir spent Shabbos in Ardiska. Uva adam echad lefanav. Certain person came in front of Rav Meir. Amar Rabbi, irafti b'tzolim letivin. I made an eruv with onions to the place of my home, Tivin. And Rav Meir realized that you can't go beyond your tchum, because he felt that making an eruv with onions is not a good eruv, and therefore he went beyond his tchum without an eruv. Therefore, he can't go more than dal amas. So you see from here that you can't use onions. Loy kasha, haba alin, haba imos. Depends whether you're eating the leaves of the onions or you're actually eating the tuber of the onion itself. The leaves are damaging, so you would not make an eruv of that. But the body of the onion itself, the root, like which is what we eat, that people do eat. The tanya. The person ate onions the night before, wakes up and dies. We don't ask, what did this guy die from? We know for sure he died from onions. But that refers to eating the leaves of the onion. But the root itself is not dangerous. It's not dangerous to eat the leaves. That it had to grow a certain amount, and then it had a certain poison in it. But that means it hadn't grown, it was not very ripe. But if it grew, the size of a zeret is a certain measurement, then less lanba, then there's no danger. And that's if somebody ate the leaves of onions without beer, then it's dangerous. If you drank beer along with it, then it's not dangerous. Now, it's not coincidental, I think, that Rav Papa mentioned that, because we have in many other places in Shas, Rav Papa was a beer merchant. So he's reminding people, oh, you know what? Make sure you drink beer with the onion because that'll protect you. It's a marketing statement. Tan Rabbanan. Lo yachol adam batzal b'pnei nachas shebo. Person should eat onions because of the sort of the venom. Like a snake has venom. It's not really venom, but that's, the poison in it. Rav Chanina ate half of an onion and the poison that was in the onion. He was going to die. The Chachamim davened for him. He was saved because the door needed him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been healed from this. So it was a supernatural event that he got healed. Amrav Zer Amar Shmuel, Sheichar Marvin Bo. You can make an eruv with beer. If a mikvah did not have 40 saw, if it had less than 40 saw, and you poured 3 lug of beer into the mikvah, it passes it. So, Maskif Rav Kana Pshita, why is it any different than colored water, which is carried and dumped into a mikvah, which would passel it? This Nan Rabbi Yossi Oimer, made seva poisonous on mikvah. B'shloishes lukim. If it's mayim she'uv, if it's carried and it's colored water, even though it's water, it passes the mikvah. So why should beer be any different? Amri hasam ma'ided siva mikvah. Yeah, because that is a kind of water. So that is passes a mikvah of water. Hacha shichra ikri. Beer is beer. It's a mashke. It's not water. It doesn't have the same water, and therefore, since it doesn't have the same mayim, it doesn't passel. Uvakama ma'arvin. So you said you can make an eruv with beer. How much beer do you need to make the eruv? Savar Rav Acha bar Rav Yosef kamed Rav Yosef lemeimar. Betrain rivi shechra. 2 quarter logs. Kidisna. So when we learned in Masechta Shabbos about carrying certain foodstuffs, we were given certain shiurim. It's got to be a chashav shiur in order to be chayav for carrying. So by carrying yayin, what's the shiur? Kidei mezigas hakos, enough that to dilute a standard glass of wine. V'tani alok dem zigas kos yofe, nice kos, my kos yofe, kos shel bracha, a kos that you would make benching on, or that you make some kind of mitzvah, like kiddushin, or milah, some kind of kos shel bracha. What kos shel bracha? Sarkshi abarova revius. You need at least a quarter of a quarter log. Kadeshim is again revius, because you need 3 parts to 1. In order, 3 parts water, 1 part wine. You need 1 part wine, 3 parts water. Otherwise, we don't call it wine. Lav chamrli. Uktani seifa ushar kol hamashkin bervias. But other beverages is a revius log. The kol hashovkin bervias. Any kind of wastewater, if you carry on Shabbos, has to be a revius of it. If by wine it's 1 and 4, so by shechra it should be the same, but velohi hasamhu the botzer me'achi lo chashiv aval hachalo davidi inchi the sheshu kasa betzav of kasa bepanya. By beer is not so expensive because here they drink a cup in the morning, a cup in the evening, and that fills them up for that kind of shear. In fact, the shear for Eruv in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Rambam, Ma'arvin Mishtei Reviyah Shel Shecha Kedivei Ravacha, 2 revios. The Samchilai. What about tamarim? What about dates? On Rav Yosef tamarim b'kav. You need a kav tamarim. On Rav Yosef v'no mina lo netanya. Achal grogos v'shilim tamarim. Person ate figs from a kohen, has to pay him back, and paid him back tamarim. Tov alav bracha. It's a good thing. Now, what's the case? He ate $1 worth of figs, and he pays him back $1 worth of dates. Right? My what kind of bracha? He paid him exactly what he. It's not any midas chasidus here. He ate $1. He paid $1. Elalav lefi mida means by weight. The achamine griva de groigros. He ate a certain 6 ounces of figs. The shav yezuzah. The komishalim le griva de tamarim, and he paid him back 6 ounces of dates. The shav yarba. Tamarim are more expensive. That was worth $4, and that's why Ketani Tavalav Bracha, Alma Tmar Madifi. So you see, tamarim are more expensive and more chashuv. No, the Tavalav Bracha case, he ate $1 worth, and the Kamashayim he paid him back $1 worth of dates. So my Tavalav Bracha, the Acha mine midid loy kavitz alezvina. There's still, if you were in the marketplace, people would rather buy dates than figs. So he paid him back with something that consumers jump on more avidly, which is dates rather than figs. And that's, even though it's the same dollars worth, it's better to have dates because more people will buy that. Right? Then shasisa is like some parched kernels of grain. On Rav Acha bar Pinchas, trei shargushi, 2 handfuls, two palmfuls. Then kisani, there's also some kind of parched grain. On Rabaya, trei buni de pumpadisa, 2 pumpadisa measurements. On Rabaya Amri aim. My mother told me, or some say it was Abaya's nursemaid. Hani kisani ma'ali leliba. This kisani is good for the heart. Umavatli machshavta. And it's like anti-anxiety. Whoever has weakness of the heart, Laisi Bishra the Atma Yamina de Dechra, you should eat meat of the right thigh of a ram. Dichras a ram. V'laisi kvuya deriyasa denissen. And bring dung from cows from Chodesh Nisan. And I guess you roast the meat over those coals. Bileka kvuya deriyasa. So if you don't have that kind of dung, laisi sugina de arvisa. Bring like from an arava, willow branch.
Willow twigs, yeah.
And then you should roast it and eat the meat. And drink diluted wine, and this will help. Koshu lifton. Lifton is anything that you eat your bread with, that you dip your bread in. So the sheer lifton is the amount that you would eat with your bread. Kol she'ena lifton, food that you don't eat with bread. Then you have to calculate how much of that particular food you have to eat to fill you up for 2 sudos. So basar chai, the Gemara assumes, is not lifton because it says kadesh lechol mimenu. Now, what about that's raw meat? What about roasted meat? Basar tzli, Rabba Omer kadei lechol bo. Well, that is eaten with bread. So the amount of roasted meat to lay down an eruv would be the amount of roasted meat that you would eat with bread for 2 sudos. But Rav Yosef Omer kadei lechol mimenu. No, it's not lifton. It's you'd have to eat the amount of roasted meat itself for 2 sudos. Rav Yosef, no, I mean Allah. How do I know this? Tani Parsoy, there were these Persians, Achli tabaki below nama, because they ate this tabaki without bread. Because tabaki is some kind of meat. Yeah, pieces of meat without bread.
But I thought we say that if it's not roasted, it's not baked.
Say it again?
They said it's roasted meat. It's roasted meat.
I said roasted meat.
Roasted.
Yep, roasted meat.
Roasted meat.
So how can, Ernie, how can you have raw meat for an eruv?
Yeah,
you cannot
roast
well,
it.
Because like what do you call? What is that called? What's that called?
The French way. Yeah.
No, when you steak tartare.
Steak tartare. Yeah.
Steak tartare.
Okay.
But there you have to have enough, not to eat along with bread, but you have to have enough to eat the meat itself.
Okay.
So because the Persians do it, does that make them the whole world? And vatnan, big anim lanim, big ashim lashim. Each kind of baguette, garment, based on size, certain aniyim will use even a shmat to 3x3 etzbos. Ashirim will not. Well, big ashim laniyim low, but so it's just because one group of people use it doesn't make a general halacha for everybody. So just because the Persians do it, why should that be the general halacha? And we'll continue this tomorrow. So
why don't we say Nesata Deverech L'Shurim? Why don't we say Nesata Deverech L'Shurim? We have to make one unit for everybody.
That's the Gemara's. That's basically the Gemara's question by saying because Persians eat it and the rest of the world doesn't. That doesn't change our halacha. So somewhat to what you're saying, but that's basically its question. Don't give me an example of the Persians because most people don't follow the Persians.